You ready? Alright. Look, dog, I'm extra unique. My whole aura screen telling it. Top man!
Shannon Shorter, another episode of the Underrated Podcast. We got my co-host, Dunlap, father, sports broadcaster, journalist, the list goes on. Mm-hmm. I just want to say I greatly appreciate the partnership.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because you jumped down with the vision that I brought to you.
Yep.
We coordinated it. We discussed what the plan was. Mm-hmm. And for us to come to this point, that means a lot to me. Dallas, Texas on.
Yeah.
He gonna always represent.
Yeah.
So how are you underrated? What made you want to get involved with this podcast? Like, just give us a little synopsis of that.
Well, for one, I'm underrated in the sense of, well, many different ways. I think statistically, I wasn't supposed to be here because when I was in the third grade, my mother and father was incarcerated. So statistically, for kids who had that type of experience, don't make it to college, high school, or even some of the things that I've achieved. So starting right there with that base, I think that's for one, how I'm underrated. Then kind of how we got here today, kind of fast forward, just we came announcement with you as I was doing broadcasting for the program here. Mm-hmm. And then from my admiration for you, just kind of being stand-up, how you, once you made the call, it was like, man, I'm getting ready to get into this media space, and the humility that you show, like really, I shadow you, just what can I learn from you? Yeah, and then we chop game as far as like, we need to come together and do the podcast. And from then we set a date, and it was on calls, it was ongoing. So the determination from talking to you, then we had the dinner, it was full-fledged, and of course I couldn't want to turn it down. I think from just knowing you, interviewing you, just to seeing how you deal with people, I think it was something special, and I couldn't turn it down for sure.
Amen. So I want to dial back to what you just said. You said in third grade, both your parents became incarcerated, right? Yeah. So did you know what was going on, like in real time at that moment, or like did years go by where you realized, okay, I got real traumas I got to deal with because I'm probably going down the path that can lead to my own destruction?
In the moment, I knew they were locked up, but I didn't know a lot of the things that I was dealing with. I knew because during that year, it was one of the most important years because I lived with my godmother.
This in third grade?
Okay. That entire year, almost like a 2-year span, I lived with my godmother, who really helped instill a lot of the principles and really showed me how to be a gentleman. She taught me small things, so like how to open the door for a woman. I remember when I was little, we would go somewhere, and if I walked in first, she would literally stand at the door and not come in until I went back and opened the door from. And so the disciplines that she was able to instill with me, and we have a relationship throughout my whole life, I think that helped me and prepared me. But at the moment, I didn't understand. I knew they was locked up, but getting older, I was able to understand my parents, talk to them about the traumas that they had, and kind of step back and understand how they didn't have the right system and family around them to be able to help them to get me where I need to go. And so as I look back and as I gotten older, I can look back at it differently without being judgmental to my parents. But at the time, I didn't understand it because I didn't know why my mom was making the sacrifices that she was making, why my dad was doing what he was doing to try to make way. I just knew that, okay, well, I got to go live with man. Well, I'm over here all the time anyway. And so at the time, I was just kind of just living in the times, living in the moment.
So did you find yourself picking up their experiences?
Yeah.
I'll say, like, did you find yourself picking up their experiences as far as like you said, you was outside a little bit. You was you was in the trenches a little bit. Yeah. So can you give us a brief synopsis of what you mean when you say that? Because was that passed down, or was it just the environment you was a part of? Like what led you to jump off the porch?
Well, really more in a sense. So I was the youngest of my mom's children, and that's the household that I was raised in. And my older brother he's been in and out of the system throughout my whole life. Okay. So during that time where I mentioned it, in that year, he was a couple of years older than me, and he had went to juvenile for something that he did. So before my mom even got into a situation, I was always going to go visit him. And so I was always it was normal for me to go to jail and visit people. And that became normal for me at a young age. And I think from from seeing that, and my oldest sister, who as we continue to talk, I want to make sure I big her up, because I wouldn't be where I am today without my older sister, who graduated. She really helped raise my mom's kids, because my mom was outside doing what she was doing, and my sister was the one in the house making sure that we was doing everything as far as taking care of the home. But for me, it got to a point to where I was older years when my mom got out and still raised me. My father ended up getting out. He did a 5-year stint when I was in the 6th grade, and it ended up raising me. But it got to a point to after I graduated high school, it was an uncertainty of where I wanted to go in my life. I went to a community college, but didn't really do nothing. And all my peers around me were involved in they were in the streets. Really, just be frank, they were in the streets. And the people that I admired in their time were in the streets because they had the frivolous things that a young kid feel like I want. I want nice clothes. I want to have money. And so when I was able to do some of the things that I did and was able to sustain some of those things, like was able to get my own apartment, have my own whatever, I was like, this still is something. It was still my sister and my granny would be like, well, what are you doing? They would always ask me, what are you doing? And it took fast forward when I was in 21, 22, my mom got into a case where she was sentenced to 16 years in prison.
So from 3rd grade, how long was she in prison when you was in 3rd grade?
She just did like 2 years then, and my father was on a 5-year stint. So I got back out and went right back with my mom, and she raised me all the way up until high school throughout my whole life.
So fast forward to this experience now where you say your mom got sentenced to 16.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, how did that, I know off camera, but how did that change your life? I think you said you went to New York for 5 years, and exposure leads to expansion, right? Yeah, definitely. That kind of shifted your whole perspective on your life experiences.
Definitely. I think from that moment, because I was at an age and kind of at a crossroads, like I was saying, I was outside and I'm seeing different things, and actually being in the courtroom, seeing my mom cry. The judge asked my mom, anything you have to say before you receive this time? And she just bawling and crying and can't even talk. And I'm just looking at the lack of remorse from the judge and everybody, the whole system. And it really heightened my senses and really inspired me to know, like, you know what? I need to do whatever I need to do to not be a part of this system. And since then, I kind of felt like I'm the chosen one to be able to break some of the generational traumas and curses in my family. And from that point on, my older sister, Candace, she like, come live in New York with me. Because when she moved away and went to college, Cal State LA, she never came back home to Texas. And to this day, she went from there to New York. She's like, just come live with me. I'm 21, 22 at the time. Like, might as well. So I went out there, and like you're saying, when being exposed to different things, expanding my mind and what I can do, and I fully became pursuing a journalism career. But while I was there, I had roots already in New York. My grandfather is from New York, my mom's dad, and he was in the Black Panthers there. I got newspaper clippings when him and his crew went to the Marcy Projects and the Quincy Projects and shut down crack houses and doing different things. So it's instilled in my ideology to want to give back to my people and be I love my people, as I should say. And so in New York really helped me find myself, not only who I am as a man, but helped me find myself who I am as an African Black man, number one, and then who I am as a man as far as what direction I want to go. I got my media arts associate's degree in Kingsborough Community College, New York. And then at the time I was getting ready to have my first child, my daughter, because I'm a father of 3, and I need to get back home to Texas, but I didn't want to go back home to Dallas. So I came to H-Town with the U of H, and that's where my journalism career kind of fully started. But it began in New York when my sister opened the door for me, and she really helped fully finance my college career with helping me with all the things that I needed and helping me stay focused, giving me a resource to not do some of the things that I would have been doing. And so I'm forever in debt with my older sister for praying for me, everything that she done for me, for sure.
Amen. How many years you did in college?
I did 2 years at an associate's degree in New York. Then I did 4 years at the University of Houston with a broadcast journalism with a minor in African American studies. Okay, so
was it when you got to New York, you realized, like, I want to jump into this media space?
Yep.
What led you to that?
I wrote down a list of things I like to do and things I love to do. And one of my loves was sports, and I was always good at writing. Okay. So, you know, when coming up, you take the tax test. At the time, I was taught the tax test when I came up. And I always had high English writing school. So I knew I was good in writing, and I knew I wanted to be sports. So first, I was going to be a sports writer. So that's where I was like, I love sports. If I can go to work every day writing about or covering sports, it'd be something I love to do. So that's what helped me get the direction or make a decision to kind of pursue that career.
Okay, so when you graduated from U of H, take us through that phase, because every individual, once they get to a certain point feeling like they gifted, feeling like they're anointed, that opportunity may not be there that they so crave. So what was that experience like for you?
Man, it was throughout my college. I was older, so I didn't graduate into college till I was 30. And in 2016, when I started my undergrad college, I was 26. I'm older than everybody, so I'm having a different level, a different perspective, because people I went to high school with, I already went to college and graduated. And so I was able to kind of take a step back and realize I need to get a lot of experience in my field while in college, and I was able to do that. And I had a good career. I mean, a good resume to enough. I qualified for some jobs, but once I graduated, I didn't have one. But the opportunity that came about was when I was in undergrad, I volunteered to call games for the women's basketball at UH. At the time, they was just streaming it on uhcougars.com. But every day, every game, I dressed up fully with a suit, did my homework, had my own stat sheet, and treated it as if it was the biggest game of my career. And one day, I remember we in the media office, guy walked in, he was like, "Hey, who are you?" He just seen how I was dressed and just kind of how my presentation of who I am. I introduced myself, told him what I was doing. And at the time, I didn't know who he was. Kind of fast forward, after I graduate, they get a deal with ESPN Plus. I get a call or email, was like, "Hey, I remember you, I met you here. Here's the opportunity for ESPN Plus. We want you to be our color commentator for the first 2 years." And that's where I got my first opportunity to call games on ESPN Plus, doing all Houston women's basketball home games. But that period was so great for me because I didn't know what to do. I'm just graduated. People are like, "Hey, what you gonna do now? Do you got a job?" And I didn't have nothing. But at the same time, I knew the work that I put in, and I had faith that I was supposed to be where I was at. So I never really got down. I just knew my time was coming. And then when it came and how it came, it kind of put in perspective, like, well, I'm glad I was ready and took everything I did up to this point to the utmost serious and treated it how I did. And it all kind of came out organically.
So what I got out of what you was just saying is that you was working while you was waiting.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people in different fields and different spaces that they trying to gravitate to and etc., that's what's holding them back at times, right? I feel like people have a certain sense of expectation, certain sense of pride, like, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do this, like they just want to give it to them. But in that process of working while you waiting, that's the moments that's teaching you what you preparing for.
Most definitely.
So what you basically just told me, it goes back to the story of like David and Goliath, right? Where like we said, you anointed, you gifted, you know who you are, but your opportunity hasn't came. But in that moment in time, David was in the field killing lions and bears, right? So when that moment with Goliath came, it wasn't, oh, I gotta rise to this occasion. Right. It was just, I've been doing this. Like, I'm already over prepared for this. I got sweat equity in this. So going back to you with the sweat equity you put into it, when you got to that moment, was it like gratifying for you, or it was just like, I'm already accustomed to this? This ain't nothing new. It may be new to y'all, but to me, I've been doing this.
It was gratifying because for me to be able to see myself doing something that I worked so hard for and be able to have the position that I was in to do it, I enjoyed it and it felt good. But then at the same time, like you said, I knew I put in the work for it. I knew that every day I came dressed to the T, that people, when they were seeing me, they were thinking like, like, you need to be dressed for something else. And I'm like, this just normal. I just do this.
I remember when I seen you at the program.
Yeah, and I took that same approach where no matter where I went, no matter what I did. When I was first got here, I reached out and called so many high school games. I didn't care if they paid me or not. I just want the opportunity to get better. High school, there's so many things that I did, but I was getting paid, but it wasn't enough pay to be able to do anything. And so it was just more about the opportunity and just doing. Really, that's like without one thing that I heard one saying that I heard: prayer without action is merely a dream. Mm-hmm. And so just praying for someone or saying you want to do something without an action behind it to achieve that is just talking. And I was actually putting things in motion to achieve when I want to achieve. But after that opportunity ended, I was kind of right back to square one after I wasn't on enough college. I had moved back to Dallas to be closer back to my kids, and I didn't really have nothing. Then I got an email or call like, hey, you want to have this opportunity to be a news reporter in Joplin, Missouri for an NBC affiliate station? I looked it up, like, what's only a 5-hour drive? Things I could still drive back home. And I took that sacrifice to even broaden my resume and take that next step to get even more experience of something that I never thought I would have been a part of.
Absolutely. So fast forward, this is a twofold question, right? You said your parents, they got locked up. Your mom got locked up. Father was in and out of prison as well. You just said you have 3 kids. Mm-hmm. How did that resonate with how you wanted to raise your kids? And then 2, what would you tell your younger self now that you see where you at, the prominence, the achievements you have accomplished, the visions you have for yourself? What would you tell your younger self with what you know now?
Well, starting first with my younger self, I would tell my younger self to have discipline. I didn't really have any discipline. That's one of the things that I lacked, was discipline, and really in any area. Mm-hmm. I would tell myself to be disciplined in something and don't run from discipline. Because in my younger years, I ran from discipline, whether it's be living with my godmother, which is probably what I should have been, or just different decisions. I would tell myself to not run from tough decisions. That's probably what I would say. Because at the time, I'm just thinking like, dang, that's probably tough. It's going to be hard. And I was running from things that was probably better for me, but it was tough. Then for the first part, as far as my parents and my upbringing, honestly, those last 2 years when I was in Joplin, as I was reflecting a lot with my parents, who they were, how they raised me, and really reflecting on myself, I realized that up until this point, even here to over the last couple of years, I had to look myself in the mirror and be honest with the things that I did up until this point and how I'm not the man I want to be right now. So they had to really, really look at myself and be truthful. What type of man does it take to be a good father, a good leader, a good husband? And honestly, truthfully, I wasn't doing those things. And so I had to really make a decision to change for the betterment, not only of my kids, for myself, and want to make things work with their mother to give them what I didn't. And I feel family structure, I think that's very, very important. Not for all, for really just from my life experience. I think from others, you can have a great support system, whether your parents are together, but primarily for me and what I learned. And as I reflected, that's one of the things that I realized within myself as a parent. And then as I analyzed my parents, during that time when my mom was locked away, we became as close as we ever came, because we was able to learn and talk about things that within her upbringing who formed who she is. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that. So same with my father, over these last year or two, I was able to remove myself of looking at them as a position of parents and expectations, but look at them as humans. Mm-hmm. And understand who they are and the traumas that they've been through, and realize of, okay, well, I can better a relationship by teaching them certain things. If my dad isn't good at communicating or initiating things, and I can realize that from him and understand from certain traumas, it's nothing for me to plan a group dinner with all my siblings and him. And I did that recently, and I'm proud of that. And my father was happy with it, because he was like, this is the first time, and it mean a lot to us. And talking to my siblings mean a lot to us too. And so really, I understand them, and I think it's important for us as Black people to get to know, communicate effectively with our parents, to understand them and try not to judge them, because the Bible and the Holy Quran is talking about honor their parents. Mm-hmm. And so you want to understand your parents, to not judge them, to especially when you get older. I mean, it's easily when you mad, oh, you could have did this and do that. But as you older, what are you doing to better your relationship with your parents versus, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that, and judging them. And that's something that I'm working on and was able to get to kind of better relationship with my parents. And I think overall, it's going to help me be even a better parent.
Hey, man, this, like I told you at the beginning of this interview, I greatly appreciate you just the partnership.
Yeah.
The man, who you are, what you stand for, and just to go on this journey with you as far as underrated and what we trying to build and what we putting out there to the world. I think it's going to be special. And I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Glad to be a part of it. Appreciate you for wanting to partner with me and seeing something in me to be able to be humble enough to make the call. Like, hey, I want to get in this media space. What can I learn from you? Yeah. And then how it organically happened out. We locked in, bro.
Nah, absolutely.
I'm ready.
Absolutely. Underrated Podcast, another episode. Shannon Shorter, co-host Dunlap. We out.
Stop playing!